Hey guys, I hope your weekend was good and everything is going great. And here we are for another episode of the podcast. The question we're going to be talking about this week is how have South Asian Americans changed through the years? To help answer this question, I brought on the Essential Questions resident auntie, air quotes for a reason, and the best math teacher, Matangi. Matangi was born in India, but you will hear her explain throughout the podcast that she moved to the United States when she was a 5-year-old and grew up in America throughout the 1970s and 80s when, let's be real, there weren't a lot of Indians here, and Patel Brothers wasn't suddenly just available down the street. She talks about growing up in this country with traditional parents, family dynamics, and basically everything you could want to know about what it was like to grow up in the 70s and 80s as a first generation Indian American. She also talks about her reformed definition of what an auntie is and why she hates the term, as well as the advantages of having a close traditional tight-knit family. You will also clearly see the advantages of having someone on the podcast who has known you since you were 4 years old is that they bring the best out of you. And they also feel comfortable with asking you basically any question. And so get ready to hear about my relationship status and relationships. I'm going to provide no context to that statement because I do not want to explain it. You'll just have to find out. So I'll leave you guys with that. I hope you enjoy episode 14 of the podcast. Cue it up. Coming to you live from my parents' house, we have episode 14, I think, of the Essential Question podcast, and we're live on Zoom with Cupertino's favorite teacher, Matangi. What's up?
Hello, Anuj. Happy to be here. I'm so excited.
Yes. For those of you that don't know and haven't grown up in the South Bay, Matangi is like known as like a Hall of Fame teacher, you know? So yeah, she's the best. She also happens to be like one of my best friend's moms, so I've known her for a long time. So, you know, it's cool. I know local celebrities. I'm kind of cool. But yeah, how are you?
I am good. I'm good.
That's good. That's
Yep.
good to hear. And the essential question for today is going to be how are South Asian Americans different through the generations? So, for those of you that don't know, Matangi is actually a first generation, like me and many other brown kids our age. And we're going to talk to her about how her life was different. And I mean, when did you grow up? Like the 80s, the 70s, those decades?
Let's see. So, I'm 54. So
Okay.
I was born in 66.
So you're old. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. I am 54. You see, and the beauty of 54 is that you get to have friends from the ages of like 18 to 78 or
Yeah.
88.
There you go. So
So you can be old and you can be young all at the same time.
there you go. She's just spitting facts right now, guys. You know, I had to bring on some wisdom. We've had a lot of young people on the podcast, a lot of inexperienced in life people, so I had to bring the wisdom today. Um,
Repping the old people,
I
man.
know, gotta get that 55 plus demographic up. You know, we're
54
currently
plus.
at 1%, so we got to get that up to at least 10. Hopefully with this episode, I mean, with the local celebrity and everything. Uh,
Oh, please stop.
So why don't you give the people like a 2-sentence Wikipedia summary to explain who you are for those that don't know who you are.
Which is pretty much everybody. So let's see. Let's see. My name is Matangi, and I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and in the early 70s. So my parents actually moved here multiple times. The last time they moved here was in 1972. And so I was 5. And so I grew up watching Sesame. So my dad was like, all, Indian dads are, convinced that, his children are brilliant. And so he took me to school. I was, I didn't really know English because we just moved here. So we took me to the best school ever, a campus school, and said, okay, she's ready for first grade. And I remember just crying the whole day. I just cried and cried because I didn't understand a word. I didn't know what was going on around me. and the teacher told him at the end of the day, how about you bring her back next year? And so I lasted for a day, went home. I was thrilled. I didn't have to go back to school. So I grew up actually watching Sesame Street and Electric Company and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And that's how I learned English. And so my sisters and I would just sit and watch. And my mom was, and this is 1972, this is how parenting has changed over the years. So my mom was, so I was 5, my younger sister was 4, and then the youngest was about a year and a half. And so my dad told my mom to do a PhD in math. And he told her the fees had already been paid and it was non-refundable. And he had talked to the chairman at his department. He taught at Memphis State. He taught math. And he talked to the chairman and said, my wife, she's, very smart. And and my mom had gotten her undergraduate at UIUC. And this was in the 60s. And so he convinced us, he just said, I think she can do a PhD. And so the chairman, and can you give her a teaching assistantship? So the chairman of the department, Dr. Fadre, said, yep, sure, why not? And so my mom ended up having to do a PhD, while doing all of the, the cooking and the child rearing. Mm-hmm. And, and she had no support because this is 1972 in Memphis. And so she knew no one. And so but they were renting a house that backed up to the parking lot.
Yeah.
Of the campus, of the university campus. And so she would leave us in front of the TV and she would go through the backyard, and there was a little cutout under the hedge where she could just kind of squeeze through and she could be on campus. Mm-hmm. So she would go attend a class and come back, and then we'd still be there. And, and I asked my mom, I was like, wait, how did you leave like a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old at home? Right. And she said, I don't know. She said, I don't even remember. She said, I think
just hope for the best.
Yeah, I know, right? Like you just do what you got to do. And, that's kind of how it was at the time. So it was, so we grew up actually quite independent because my mother was, at school and, doing her thing. Mm-hmm. So we grew up, I guess, kind of relying on each other because we also had siblings.
Yeah.
Right. And my dad was my mom was kind of in charge of like the dress we wore, the way the hair, the dress, the appearance, mm-hmm. the chores, those things. My dad took over, playing, board games, cards, teaching us how to read and write in Tamil, enforcing the Tamil only rule, at home. And, prayers every morning, every evening, special prayers on Fridays. And it was, so between the two of them, it was a very, very regimented Orthodox household. And, my kids complain about how, we were so into the whole religion thing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking to myself, you have no idea. It's like no idea. Yeah. Like this, like the way, I think every generation is like a percentage, mm-hmm. of their parents' generation. Yeah. And so I was a filtered down version of my parents, very for filtered down version,
Yeah. So that was an essay, not a 2-sentence summary.
Sorry.
No, I'm joking.
Just stop me, okay?
It was great. No, I like guests where I can just feed them a question and they run, and that's what you did. So that was fantastic, and I think people are going to enjoy that.
I do, but look. So if I'm going on too long, we have a signal now. Okay, you do this.
It's okay. I enjoy the fact that you just feel so comfortable that you could just run 5 miles with the question. So I appreciate that. As an interviewer, it makes my life easier, right? Because I don't have to feed you constantly. You're just running and going, and that's good. We like that here.
You're 54, you have lots of stories.
Exactly. So we're gonna get into more of those stories. But first, we got to do our rapid fire intro, and I figured this week with the theme of oldness and wisdom, we would title it "Old People Things." That's gonna be the rapid fire intro of this of this week. So I'm sure you'll score very highly on
I'm
this.
honored to represent the old people of this world. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure, and also like in your essay that you just told, you answered like 90% of my questions, so you're gonna make me scramble here, but it's fine. But
sorry.
no, it's fine. But the first question for our rapid fire intro, which I think you also answered, was what is the first television show that you remember watching?
Oh yeah, I already told you that.
Yeah.
Sesame Street. I love Sesame Street. Oh, the other show that we used to watch as a family, actually. This was like when I was like in, elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
Was the Carol Burnett show. And that used to come on in the evenings. And like Saturday evenings, I think it was maybe. And I remember that was the show that we would watch when my mom would, this was after they had bought our first home. So it was a, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, little tiny house with, the 7 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the cockroaches, traveling up and down the walls, it was, but it was okay. It had a big backyard. And but Saturday evenings was kind of when my mom would do all the loads of laundry, and there were lots of loads of laundry. And so, and every load of laundry that came out, it would get dumped into the center of the family room floor. And we would sit around and we'd have the Carol Burnett show going, and we would sit and fold and, and just laugh. It was just, that, and it's funny because I think that's probably the only memory I have of my mom where we're actually doing something together, because she was always that and going to garage sales, because she was like so busy, like, as you can imagine, it was a tough life for her. But but that was fun. So Carol Burnett show and Sesame Street.
Okay. Second question. When was the first time that you ever used a computer?
You know what? It was when my dad told me to do my undergrad in computer science. I've never used a computer until then. Had no clue. And so, and of course, my dad kind of had, pushed us through school, quickly. So I skipped like 3 grades. And so when I was 15 when I had to kind of go to college.
That's
And
crazy.
I had no clue. Who knows what they want to do when they're 15? I certainly didn't. And I'm always impressed when like my students, know what they want to do. And I'm like, wow, like, what you want to major in. It just kind of blows me away, that kids are so passionate about.
When I was 15, I was not thinking about school. I don't know what I was doing. I was in my own world, but yeah.
You were playing like board games.
I was an awkward, lanky teenager who was probably hanging out with your kid for, hours on end. That's probably what we were doing when we were 15.
Yeah. Those were good days, Anuj. Those were good days.
Pre-corona.
And you were never an awkward teenager. You have always
Me? Oh my. Yeah, I was so awkward. You could ask any of my friends from high school. They'll be like, dude, wow, you were really awkward in high school. I was.
Okay, Anuj, remember how Avinash and I, like, our money was on you, man. Like, who was going to be the first to have a girlfriend in the group? Like, our money was on you.
Yeah,
right?
5 years later, that's non-existent. But, here we are. The money was on me. I did not deliver, unfortunately. But that's still on the table. So,
You're a catch, Anuj.
Guys, you heard it here first. I'm a catch. I appreciate that. Thank you. First time one of my podcast guests has told me that. I'm gonna flex that. I'm gonna save that as like a sound and then play it just to like boost my ego. Anyway, this is about you, not about my horrid relationship life.
In my head, I'm like, okay, who can I fix you up with?
No, okay, let's not get into Anuj's relationship fiasco on the podcast. We can talk about that a little later. Yeah, it's complicated, guys. This is the disadvantages of bringing down someone who's literally known you since you were 4 years old, is they literally know everything about you. And this is the problem. What is your favorite? Yeah, it's not bad. It's just, yeah. What is your favorite board game, and how is your family so good at them? Because I've played you guys in board games, and I've won maybe 5 times out of the thousands of times that we've played.
Well, because you've known me for as long as you've known me, you know that my favorite, any game that involves words and letters.
Oh, Lord.
Which, unfortunately, my sons did not inherit that passion. So they play those games with me exactly one day a year, which happens to be on my birthday. So my favorite word game it's called Royalty. I don't know if they make it anymore. My friend
Oh, it's Quiddler.
No, I knew it. I moved on. I know you were thinking I was going to say Quiddler because that's what we always play. But it's actually so Royalty is just a little step up from Quiddler. It's got it. And next time you come over when this pandemic is over, Royalty. It's super fun. But but that actually, and the thing is, I don't think they make it anymore. My friend Penny found the game at Goodwill. And so she picked it up for me, and she said, I don't know what this is, but I thought you might enjoy it. And so we looked at the rules and we sat down, we played it together, and it was actually really fun. And so I found it on eBay and stuff. I don't think it's in the stores.
Yeah.
But that's my favorite game. And then of course, cool. Quiddler is the family game. So that is the game that the extended family knows how to play. And all my friends. Okay. And it's just easy. And you know what's nice about Quiddler?
Yeah.
Is it's one of those games where when it's not your turn, if there's 7 people playing, right?
I think there's nothing nice about Quiddler, but that's my
You told me
my mom, there was the funniest story. She came over one time and you asked her to play Quiddler and she said yes. And my mom hates playing board games. It's her least favorite thing in the world to do. And she just played one round with you and she's like, I will never win. She just you took over the title as Quiddler Queen that day. It was just she's too good. It's impossible. Everyone in my family combined has tried to beat you in a variety of different board games, and we have all just lost. Everybody.
That's true. I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I have very few wins in the 19 years I've known you. So.
I have a love of words, and I think it probably comes from being bilingual, and I think my love of cards and games comes from my dad, because he taught us how to play gin rummy when we were 4 or 5, so we grew up playing cards and board games, and he also loves board games. In fact, the two of us, when we are playing a board game, it gets very heated. We are challenging each other's words all the time. And I remember I'd gotten up the last game of Royalty I played with my dad. I just got up saying, I am not I'm done. I'm not playing anymore.
Yeah. You get heated when it's family. Things get competitive. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
So but my very first year as a teacher, which was 6 years ago. So, I taught geometry, and I remember I thought, how can I make this fun? And so I would play this game where I would draw a polygon, a triangle or a pentagon or a hexagon or whatever. And and you have to kind of, and the vertices are named by the names of points, which are capital letters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would kind of leave it unnamed. And I would say, okay, guys, so this is a 3-letter word. And so I said, guess what the first letter is? And all the kids were C, right? Mm-hmm. and then I would make the vertices spell a word.
Oh,
right?
my.
I know. Now I look back and I'm like, maybe that wasn't such a great idea. But I think at the time.
That's funny.
But I think there were some kids who really enjoyed it. Some others thought it was a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
Too bad for them.
I would have been in the too bad for them category. Yeah. That's besides the point.
I don't know how I missed all of the eye rolling in the back, but
yeah.
I only saw the excited hands go up in the front.
So that was the 3 teachers' pets at the front of the class.
Okay, I did not have teachers' pets.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. Just bring me into your class for observation one day, and I'll point out to you exactly who the teachers' pets are. I'm really good at that.
Okay, in fact, if I have any former students out there, I'd be curious to know what who people thought were my teachers' pets.
You can ask them. Just ask them.
I should ask them. I should.
Yeah, they'll tell you.
I don't think I had any teachers' pets. I mean, I was just always really thrilled when any kid came up to me if they wanted to talk to me, after class or before class, or if they said hello or if they waved to me. I'd be like, oh my gosh, they're waving to me, or oh my gosh, they said hello. And I would just be like thrilled that the kids were talking to me. Right?
Yeah.
Still thrilled actually when kids talk to me. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's so nice.
No, I find it so awkward, like bumping into teachers at like the grocery store. I did like my junior year of high school. I was at Safeway and like the Saratoga Safeway. I was just buying something, and in aisle, literally the next aisle, I see my pre-calc teacher, and my God, never have I seen lateral movement like I saw from myself that day. I ran so quickly from the aisle. It was not even funny. Like I was like, okay, she's gonna ask me about my homework. I'm not talking to her. I see her 5 days a week. I can't do this anymore.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen like teachers at like the grocery store. I've pretended not to know them. I've like, I've not pretended not to know them, but just like, kept my head down, not looked, like this, that, and the other. I just don't like seeing my teachers in public. That's me. I don't
Really?
know. I don't know if that's a thing, but
I love seeing my students in public. In fact, you know what? When I go to like the farmer's market, or if I go to Target, like in the back of my head, I'm always like thinking, oh, hope I get to see one of my kids today. And
literally we see one of your students every time we hang out. It's not even funny. We could walk the streets, someone's there. We can go get lunch, someone's there. Like driving, someone's driving next to us. Like your students are everywhere. I don't even understand.
well, I do have 800 of them now that I taught this year.
There you go. When you break the 1,000 mark, it's over at this point.
I know, right?
Next
year, maybe next year. Oh no,
Yeah.
2 years. In 2 years.
2 years.
Yep.
We'll be waiting for that day. Next question though. You're doing great so far.
Thank you.
So you recently got a smartphone. And you hate it. So like what is that trend? So this is what constitutes an old person, guys. Is she had a flip phone until like this year, last year?
I have that flip phone. I should show you the flip phone, and you can see the comparison.
Yeah, but she had a flip phone through the age of tech and smartphones, and ironically, living in the Silicon Valley, she still carried a flip phone. But now she has a smartphone. So what's that life been like? What's the iPhone life been like?
It's been hard. So it's so big. It's big. It's heavy. And when I hold hold my flip phone in one hand and I hold this in the other hand, you can feel the lightness.
Yeah.
Like the flip phone, like I would go on a walk and I could just slip it right into my pocket. This
you can. That's massive. You got the big one.
How big is your pocket?
This is why I got the 8. It's fine. You can fit this in your pocket.
You might as well get an iPad at that point, okay? So it's like, okay. So I don't get it. And then and it's like if I want to, and if somebody like calls, and it has this little strip that comes across the top, and then I kind of punch it, and then it just like doesn't like open, and then I just hang up on them, and then I call them back.
I love it.
Bad.
I love it.
Whereas with a flip phone, like when the phone would ring, I would click the green button, right? And I would talk to them. It was simple.
See,
right?
So many people disagree with you right now. Like so many people are pausing this YouTube video and just saying "Okay, boomer" at the same time. That it is not even funny.
See, when you're 54, you don't care what the majority says.
Well, I've grown up with this iPhone, right? So like, it's just like normal to me. It's like, all right, cool. Like, I mean, I had the flip phone for a long time, like because I would just break the smartphones I was given in high school, and so I was stuck with the little like Samsung flip phone where like my space bar was broken. So like, my mom would try to text me, and the worst is when they text you emojis. It's like. It comes in like 7 different images, and it's like you can't even see what they're saying. And it's like group chats. Oh, those were bad too, because because you'd get messages from each individual person. You have to piece together the conversation like it's some sort of like that what's going on. But it's like one person's like no, and the other person's like yeah, and it's like what is going on? Like they're all texting me individually. There's no group, so
True.
Group chats suck.
Emojis would like shut my phone down. Actually.
Exactly. It just can't compute. Yeah.
And so I would tell my friends, don't send emojis.
Yeah.
So they would like have to remember not to send me emojis. Otherwise, it would just shut down the phone and you'd hear the ding, ding, ding.
Ah, that's the worst. Oh man. I lived with that life for so long. It
I
was so bad. I've
I
gone through all types of phones. The keyboard slide one where you could like actually text people, and
yeah.
then there was the like the normal flip phone, and then I went through like broken hand-me-down fifth generation smartphones for my family, and then finally I got myself my own iPhone, and I was like very happy. But
See, I do not understand how people kind of go on and on and on about how they have the latest iPhone and they're like super excited by this.
yeah,
I just, that joy, I just don't even understand.
that's funny. I honestly don't understand it because it's like, bro, you're spending $1,000 on a phone. Like, chill out a little bit. But it is what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, man, I tell you, it's too bad that Verizon no longer supported that little flip phone that I had because it was so awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's okay. Like I now I kind of know how to use this, so I can live with it.
So
But
next, go.
no, it's just people said, "Oh no, you're gonna love it." Nope, they were wrong, and I knew they were gonna be wrong, and they're wrong.
Yeah. We could go on and on with the smartphone discussion. Maybe we'll do another podcast about smartphones. So what were old school classrooms like? And as like a teacher, what are the differences you see between like 2021, obviously besides the pandemic, but like 2021 classrooms versus like 1972 or 1975 classrooms? Like, what's the difference?
You know what? They haven't changed very much, to tell you the truth. It's exactly the same. Yep. And
Very
it
good.
actually, what, I was really lucky because the elementary school that I went to in Memphis was the best. It was very progressive. It was the best. I had such amazing teachers who I'm still like so grateful for today. And that I still remember like so fondly. And and they made, and I think when I talk to people about their experiences of growing up in this country as being Indian, or being Chinese, or somebody who's not white or not black.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just being that one different person. I hear different stories about, oh, it was horrible, or they were bullied, or they just had low self-esteem. And and I think about how I grew up, and I think I had a really good experience being like the one brown person in my class,
Interesting.
because my teachers were so accepting and celebratory about it. And I
Nice.
remember in second grade, I would go in, wearing like my it's called, pavada chatte. So it's like the long skirt and the shirt, and I would wear that to school. And I would have my bindi, and so it was just like who I was, and I just kind of would walk in right in, and I remember I would be greeted with like, "Oh, you look like a princess," and it was like, "Oh, that is so beautiful," and all of my all the little kids would come around like, "Oh, you look so pretty," and so to the point where it was just so appreciated, and it made me feel so special, that I could come in and be this person who's different, and because I'm different,
Right.
it made me special,
Mm-hmm.
and so and it got to the point where I really enjoyed being the one and only Indian.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I was special,
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people don't have that experience, which is like strange enough. It's just like I feel like I hear a lot of the negative side where it's like, oh, like I was the only Indian kid. Kids bullied me for the food I ate, for like the way my parents talked, like all that stuff. So it's interesting to hear like the opposite perspective.
No, in fact, my best friend Amy Craze, I remember one time she said, "Hey, can your mom make me one of those skirts?" And I was like, "Ask her," right?
That's awesome.
So yeah, so my mom did, because she would make our, she would, of course, along with the million things she did, she would also like, make our, the long skirts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And and she made one for, and I said, "Can you make one for Amy?" And she said, "Sure." And so she made one for Amy, and I remember Amy wore it to school one day, like we wore our matching pavadas, and it was just
That's awesome.
yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
So it was that school, it was made up because it was called campus school because it was at the edge of the university campus.
Mm-hmm.
And so so the School of Education would often come to run to run experiments or to do studies, and they were constantly like coming up with and they were constantly coming up with better ways of teaching, right? And grading and assessing. And so every year we had like a report card that looked different from last year's report card. One year it was like a color coded report card. We had colored bars. And the next year it was like, just, letters, like not, but it was just like, satisfactory, meets, exceeds, whatever.
Right.
And so it was just a very progressive school that way. And it was called, and the philosophy was, it was an IGE school, which is individually guided education. And so therefore it had a lot of professors' kids that went there.
Right.
So, and I think maybe that also contributed is, this population that we had, it was a very different population. And it wasn't only professors' kids, it was a public school. So we also had, kids just from the neighborhood or just, wherever, right? And so it was, and so the population was, it was like 50% Black, 50% white. And I don't, and the thing is, I don't, it was like, I don't think there was any like racial tension. Like I certainly didn't feel any bullying or, it just kind of always felt very calm and peaceful. And I loved school because the teachers were so caring and loving and accepting. And and they made me feel cherished, I would say. Yeah, and it was so much fun, and I loved seeing my friends. And so like I preferred school to being at home, because at home I would have to memorize Tamil poetry.
Yeah.
Like, oh good, it's Monday. I get to get out of here.
You're the one child in America that was saying it's Monday. Yay.
Off I go.
Yeah, that I've never had that experience. But I know you moved around a lot as a kid, all over the country, right? Because your dad was a professor, and like I guess he would get job opportunities at different schools, right? So, what was your favorite place to live growing up?
Where was my favorite place to live? I really enjoyed. I think I enjoyed actually Chico, because we lived in Chico for like a semester. And I remember Chico just being this really quaint, small town when we lived there. And I think I was, how old was I? I think I was 12. Yeah, that's right. Because I just finished the first semester of 7th grade.
Right.
And my dad got a job there for the second semester. And so he packed us all up and we went to Chico, California, right? And he took me and my sister to the principal's office and put our report cards on the table. I said, straight A's. She can go into 8th grade now, and you can put her in 7th, right?
That's crazy.
Right? So it was like, in 1 year I got to finish both 7th and 8th grade. Right?
Wow.
Fly in this day and age, but
yeah,
but back in like the must have been, I guess, early 80s, I guess.
The amount of paperwork you would have had to fill out in today's day and age.
Yeah, so it was but it was just a very quaint town. But I remember I had no friends.
Okay.
Because it was like because I got there like not only the second semester, but also because all of a sudden I'm now in a different grade too, right? And I remember I would read a lot. I was an avid reader, and nothing of substance. It was always like, Judy Blume was like my favorite author.
Love it.
It was like complete like those, the adolescent coming of age kind of.
Yeah.
That's all. I was totally all about that. And so then, I remember we had to write, and I remember though, I was at my meanest then as well. Very full of myself, very egotistical.
Well, you were a teenager, so it makes sense. Like,
I was 12 though. I didn't know that. I mean, I was still like not quite.
Tweens are mean. Okay, tweens are mean.
I guess so.
Tweens.
Yeah.
Tweens are mean. Like, don't sleep on tweens. These guys they're ruthless. I was one, and I was pretty ruthless, if I wouldn't say so myself. Like, dang, I was not a very good tween. I feel bad. But Yeah, no. I think
very nice.
see that's you saw the public persona tween, right? You didn't see me at home. I was different at home. But I feel like with tweens it's like the hormonal imbalances are at their highest. And so it's like, all over the place and you just like go from really happy to like really sad very quickly. So, it's unfortunate. But yeah, tweens are bad. So, yeah.
Huh. Yeah, because I remember this girl, Stara, and she had written me a little note and she passed it over to me in class when I first arrived in Chico. And it was all about, hi, my name is Stara, and, maybe you can come over to my house after school one day. Just super nice, right?
Mhm.
You know what I did? I took my red pen out and I corrected all of her grammatical, spelling, and punctuation mistakes. And then I said, and I put, I hope you don't mind. I want to be a teacher someday.
I mean, you weren't wrong.
Oh, but do you think Stara actually ever had me over?
I mean, I presume that was the end of that friendship.
Yeah, that was it. It was so mean. And so we had to write this essay in English class about, your best friend. And I remember writing that I didn't have friends,
Mhm.
but that but my friends were books. My friends were my books. And now I wasn't unhappy. I was perfectly content. But I wonder though, like what my teacher must have thought, with hearing that a child had no friends. He must have felt really sorry for me.
Yeah, no, I bet it must
Yeah.
have been an interesting experience to say the least.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it for the rapid fire intro. You killed it.
That was the intro?
That was supposed to be.
I was gonna say, hey, that was great. Goodbye.
Well, sometimes again, people will just take the question and run, and so that's what you did, and we respect it. So, here at the Essential Question Podcast, we like to let people be themselves and just run with whatever. So that's what we
Hot
do.
water.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll get into the real questions now. I'll obviously have to cut back because I didn't think the rapid fire intro would not be a rapid fire, but very much a slow musket intro.
Okay.
Sure. But yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about like what my initial questions were. I was gonna like ask you about your parents and like how they were like very traditional. So like if you want to talk a little bit more, like did they give you like any leeway to like explore what it was like in American culture? Or was it very much like, like these are our traditions, this is what we do, we run a tight ship, like no questions asked type thing?
Yeah, no. Because they were very, very clear in what what their priorities were.
Mm-hmm.
And what they wanted to instill in their kids, which I have to admire. There was no wishy-washiness.
For
right?
sure.
Yeah. So it was like faith, right? Absolutely number one, because that is what helped them survive life, was staunch faith, which to this day, I think I admire in them that they have that staunch faith, because
Mm-hmm.
to this day, it gives them like this enormous amount of strength to get through like the hardest things that you can imagine in life.
Right.
And so I don't know how they would have survived without that faith, and which essentially I think translates to, is the hope and optimism that things will work out. With
Mm-hmm.
undoubtedly 100% with certainty that everything will be okay.
Yeah.
And I think not everybody has that staunch 100% certainty. Yes, everything will be okay. I need not worry.
For sure.
And they have that, and they pass that certainty on, to it. Then they give that hope and that, that assurance to us. If we're, worried or concerned, or, it's like, don't worry, that it'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
And, and so you need, and so having, and having that really kind of makes you feel calmer and, and just happier.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them, so passing on faith was like number one. And then number two was, the language. So we had to speak Tamil at home, 100%, like no English allowed.
Mm-hmm.
We had to, because all of our relatives were in India. We were the only,
Right.
yeah, the only
So you were like the transplants, kind of, just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were very, very close to their, siblings.
For sure.
And and in fact, my dad, all of their savings went to buying plane tickets every summer to go to India.
Mm-hmm.
And we would spend the entire summer, in India, like at my grandmother's house, and and visiting all the aunts and uncles and cousins, and of course we spoke in Tamil, so 2 months out of the year we were speaking Tamil anyway because we were in India.
Right.
And it was and looking back, it's I'm so grateful that they made those sacrifices.
For sure.
This is how they are going to spend their savings, is because it was giving us the connection to our family, to an extended family.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I have 2 cousins here in the Bay Area, and they're like my people, that I can depend on, like 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's like, if it's just, if ever I needed anything, I know I can go to them. And and I know this because of the relationship that our parents had with each other, and the sacrifices that they made, when we were growing up. For and sure. So it was, so that commitment and that loyalty kind of got passed on through the generations.
Yeah.
And so, so that was, number one, and number two was pretty much, was religion, language, and, and also it was like, what you wear. Like we had to wear, like saris.
Right.
In the summer, when it got warmer, like in the summer, I remember one summer my mom like took all of my, American stuff from my closet and put it in the shed. And so I could only wear like, halves. And then my dad told me when I turned like 13, he was like, okay, you can only wear half saris now in the summer.
Okay.
You cannot, when you leave the house, like, you have to wear half saris, right? And I was like, I'm not leaving the house then, right?
Okay.
Because I was like, I'm not going to be wearing half saris outside in public.
Yeah.
And so I didn't leave the house for like 3 days, right? And then so finally they kind of, start like gave me back like my jeans and whatnot. But I wasn't allowed to wear, but I did wear like, saris and like the, the pavada chatti. And so I did kind of adhere to that. When I was like a teenager.
Yeah.
But and so it was, but I have to say, because of that, I think I became very comfortable being the odd man out. So I never felt like I had to, wear this or that or be this or that.
Yeah.
It really gave me an identity of my own, where I am, equally comfortable, like kind of treading, both cultures.
Yeah.
But I don't have to say I am this or I am that. And I just am,
For sure.
Yeah.
So like, oh yeah, no, go for it.
And it's just pleasant. It gives you like so many like clothing options. So I have 2 more of those.
There you go. Right. You have both sides. See, I was like thinking the whole time when you were saying that, I was like, I cannot imagine what my reaction would be if my mom was like, you have to wear kurta to school every day. I would like, I don't even know what I would do. I would probably just faint on the spot. In embarrassment, because I mean at that age I don't know if I would even do it now. Like it's just, to me, like I don't think I have that kind of strength and that willpower to like pull it off. But yeah, that's super cool that you were like kind of raised to wear those clothes. And I feel like now, like being older, like I do have like such an appreciation for like the clothing and all of that stuff, even though like I would complain about how much it itches and all of that stuff when I was a kid. But that's what age is for, right? No,
but I did have to tell you, what I really, really, really embraced the saris.
Yeah.
Was when I was, because when I was in college, I remember, how old was I? I must have been, this was like my junior year. And when we moved from Toledo, where I started college, like back to Memphis.
Yeah.
And I was at Memphis State. And so I must have been 17 or maybe 17 or 18, something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember one time there was this guy, And he said, that's really sexy. And I was wearing the sari, and I was like, it is, right?
That's dope. I mean, shout out. That's cool. We love that for you. Like, we love that for the race. That's great. People like the culture. So
Yeah, I know, right? Again, it's like being celebrated. I was like, oh, okay.
Note to self: wear that all the time.
Yes, and that actually was, and I don't know how I was like, and the thing was, I was raised to think that saris were modest, right?
Yeah.
That's why I had to wear them. But it didn't dawn on me that it could be perceived as something that's not modest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, of course. And now I'm like, of course it's not modest, because there's all of the skin showing, right?
For sure. Yeah.
And so
it's so weird the way different cultures look at different things. That's always been fascinating. But like, how do you think your so you obviously grew up extremely traditional, as you've described, but like, how do you think that's changed your parenting style when it comes to like parenting Indian American boys like you have the last, however many years?
I mean, I guess, I think every parent, regardless of, what culture or how, whatever, I think you take what you appreciated and you toss what you didn't.
Okay.
Right. And so, so because for me, faith has also been, it's quite central to, to who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it's brought a lot of comfort to me. And so therefore that was something that I had hoped to pass on to my kids, but failed miserably at.
Okay, right? I wouldn't go that far, but I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say you failed miserably.
They're atheists. Like, I would say that is 100% fail. Okay? and they constantly throw it in my face. Like just yesterday, I was talking to the oldest, right? And he's just constantly like, you're just like your parents, like, like,
yeah.
This, like, the like, the faith, mm-hmm. and all that, but 20 somethings, like, we're not about that. And so,
yeah. But see, the thing is, like, with faith, I feel like you may not have been able to like pass on the religious values, you know what I'm saying? Like the, like the knowledge of all the gods and all this stuff. But like, I think faith has central values. Like, I think every religion has like the values of like what it means to be a good person. And like, I feel like that you definitely have passed on in your boys, because I see it in them. So like, like, I feel like you can't discount that fact, because I think faith centers around certain values of like, don't lie, don't cheat, be honest, like have integrity. And like, your boys most definitely have all of those things. So yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, there you go. A plus on that one. Yeah, I mean, what did you throw out? I'm just curious, like, what were you like, oh, I never want to do this, that like your parents
did? The enforcing, we tried, like, I also was really, really appreciative that I was bilingual.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted my kids to be bilingual. But the thing with and we started off pretty good with that. But the thing was, it got to a point where, when they were like struggling in, with, like being bullied and, things like that, when they were some really rough times in school, and they would come home just feeling very despondent and, and wanting to, and I wanted to kind of, ask about their day, and they were just sad, and they would tell me in English, and I realized at that point I couldn't really ask them to repeat that in Tamil,
mm-hmm.
because I just had to listen. And so, and then also we started having, like, it was, I think when I think back to how I raised them, I kind of wanted to raise them in the way that I would have, with, I guess, providing them with what I didn't have growing up.
Yeah.
Which was, like providing a home where they could have their friends over.
Right.
And, and just like play dates, lots and lots of play dates.
Yeah.
And, so, and things like being a part of something like Cub Scouts,
mm-hmm.
and Boy Scouts. And, I wanted to kind of be a part of their growing up years. I wanted to be a part of their schooling. I wanted to be a part like really the things that were important to them, which is, which
Mhm.
were like their friendships and really getting to know like, who their friends were. And just, I really enjoyed being a part of that world.
Yeah.
I guess I've always just kind of enjoyed, the company of, young people. I've just always enjoyed that.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, you always have, like, since we were kids, like you would like prefer to hang out with us than like, older people.
I
So
did. I did.
yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. We're kind of cool. So
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
um, but tell me about like those trips that you took like back to India. Like, do you think like, I mean, you kind of like alluded to it earlier. Like, do you feel like spending time in India like definitely helped you like relate better to like the culture and just like have closer ties to your family?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I think, in order to have ties with family, I think it's more than just, going and spending, a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just it's like the day in, day out mundane stuff.
Right.
Right. So like when we would go to India and be there for 2 months at my grandmother's house,
Mm-hmm.
the rice that she would buy would be in bulk. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because none of my relatives were, particularly well off. And so it was always about how do you save money, right? And so she would buy the rice in these giant bags, and often it would have lots of little rocks in them. And so it would just be this mountain of rice that she would pour, like on this blanket, and we would all sit around, all the cousins,
Yeah.
and each of us would be given little portions of rice, right? And we would uncooked rice, of course, and we would have to go through it and pick out little rocks, right? And and then put the clean rice in the clean rice pile. And and as you're doing that, like you're just sitting and you're talking and you're kind of going through the mundaneness of it all. And
Mm-hmm.
then each of you are promised like like the like a little bit of change, so that you would then, when you're done, very excitedly all run to like the little neighborhood little shack, kind of market that there was. And and they would have little jars of candy,
Right.
and you can decide like which piece of candy were you going to buy for having picked rocks out of rice for like the last 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then like sitting in the summer heat and just kind of going to like where the cows were, like in the in the shed, and just kind of sitting there because it was cool. And then you would, and plus you were hoping the adults wouldn't find you because you wanted to play cards,
Mm-hmm.
and just sitting and playing hours and hours of cards and getting into fights, and and then making up again. And it was, it's like it's just the mundane stuff. It's like
Yeah,
the day in, day out. And so it really so you feel like your family.
for sure.
Yeah, so I really do, I that to me has been just priceless. And and that was something that I'd hoped to create, for my children.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess as they grow older, I guess it remains to be seen
Right.
whether I created it or not.
Do you mean like create like a bond between like the siblings or like extended family?
The extended family.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy because like for us, like at least in my experience, like I never had that because my parents would never like do like the trips to India because like we moved to India when I was like really little, but I was there for like a year and I barely remember it. I was like 2 years old. Um, but like the trips to India for us have just been like really infrequent. And it's been weird because like I feel like I almost don't know like a whole side of the family in a lot of ways. But it's been really interesting that like now that we're older, like me and my brother and like our cousins are, older and they're moving to the US to like work and do all of these things. And so like it's kind of cool to like be able to relate to them and also like them kind of having this different, like it's kind of like a new chapter, like we weren't kids growing up together, but like now that we're all adults and we're all living in like the same area, like it's kind of cool to like have that. It's weird because I feel like it started a little later, but it's progressing nicely and I like that for sure.
That's good.
Yeah, no, for sure. What else? Oh yeah. I know that like I in my experience growing up here, like so many of us just like grow up hating like our culture. Like you have this like hatred, this phase of just hatred. Like, did you ever have that? Because I know you talk a lot about like you loved it and it was great, but like, did you ever have a phase where you're like, oh, like I just want to fit in?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like I wasn't allowed to speak. Like my dad would say, "Do not talk to boys," right?
Mhm.
So talking to boys was just an absolute no-no. And so, if you can't talk to boys, that means you can't join clubs in high school.
Right.
So, so I never had that high school experience. Like I never was part of a sports team or
Mhm.
part of a club. Or went to the mall with my friends and or tried on makeup or talk, hairstyles, because I wasn't allowed to cut my hair. I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. In fact, I had to keep my hair braided, like every day it had to be in a braid.
Right.
So I was never allowed to just kind of let it loose. And it was, and so when you can't cut your hair, when you can't wear makeup, when you have to wear like, Indian clothing in the summer, and my mom wouldn't let me like you couldn't like tuck in your shirt and your jeans because then
Mhm.
you would be seen, right? And
Mhm.
so like it was like so it was like really you couldn't really be fashionable, right? So you take out the clothes, you take out the hair, you take out the makeup, you take out boys. Like what else are you going to talk about with your friends?
So that calculus homework, huh? It was pretty nice.
Yeah, so that's why I had like the one friend that I would
Yeah.
sit with in high school. I didn't have any friends, and so I
Mhm.
just had the one. And she and I would sit by ourselves at lunch, and we would talk about school, like the test or homework or what'd you get for
You
this.
would have fit in great to this culture here at Monte Vista. You would have been the most popular girl in school if you were just talking about tests all day. Absolutely. I mean, geez. Like,
Yeah, and you know what? That, and also I was uber competitive, where like I had to have like the highest day in the class.
oh man, this is your heaven then. High school you would have thrived.
I tell you what, you know what? It's like that. So that high school, I don't even, that's why I don't feel like I really started living until I graduated high school and fell on my face and failed miserably. And I think that's when life began for me.
Hmm.
Yep.
That's
So it was,
interesting.
yeah, but I definitely, regret it. I think, having, that normal, I would look at, I always felt like the outsider looking in high
Hmm.
school because I couldn't do any of those things, and it all just seemed so glamorous.
Yeah.
And I wished I could do all of those things.
Hmm.
And maybe that's why I read so many books, because that's how I lived those things. Was,
Right.
yeah, very
That's
righteous.
that's interesting. That's like a different like I know like here it's more like outward like you can see like people don't like the culture but like yours was more of like I just can't show anything or like do anything so like I'm just gonna like read books and like live my fantasies through that. That's super interesting. I've not heard that perspective before. Um, so you've talked to me about this before, and this is a theory that you share with like a lot of our friends and like common people. Your auntie theory.
Love
Um,
history, yes.
do you care to share some light on this? Because I think there's a lot of brown kids that are going to listen to this and be like, "Wow, I'm shocked."
Oh
So
yeah, the
go
auntie thing
for it.
always makes me cringe.
Tell the
Auntie,
theory.
yeah. So my theory, okay, first of all, so my I pulled my kids out of Regnart, the traditional neighborhood school, and I put them into McCullough, which is an alternate school. And it's all about the experiential learning, the whole child, all of these wonderful things. And one of the things that school is known for is that children call everybody by their first name. So you
Mhm.
call your teacher by his or her first name. You call the principal by their first name. You call all of the parent volunteers by their first name. Everybody's on a first name basis.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you, it was, and it, that atmosphere going from your traditional school to McCullough was was such a breath of fresh air for me, because what I noticed was that kids, when kids can call adults by their first name, there's this invisible wall that just kind of crumbles, and there's so much more comfort and truth in that relationship, and there is no fake respect, and I feel like this whole auntie thing is like fake. It feels like very fake respect.
Mhm.
And I think true respect is when you actually have affection for someone, and you approach that relationship with affection, you know, and it really doesn't, and because I don't want respect, right? Like I don't demand respect. Really, what
Right.
I look for is affection in a relationship, and affection going both ways. And I think when when you say you must call me auntie because I'm older than you, then all of a sudden it's an us and them situation. It's
Hmm.
not a we, you know. And so it's and I that's why I tell kids, when you turn 18, like, you call me Matangi, because
Yeah,
that's,
I got that conversation.
yes, right.
Yeah.
And Anujan, I'm kind of curious, like, did you, for you, I know it was
Yeah.
hard because you went from, I didn't, what did you call me? I guess you,
Auntie. I used to call you
okay,
auntie back in the day.
I
Yeah.
can't, I wasn't sure if it was Mrs. Rajamani or Auntie, but
No, no,
but,
it was.
was there a shift in the relationship for you in after
Yeah,
after Matangi became the norm? After
for
you got to,
sure.
oh, I gotta call her. Oh,
I thought it was okay. So when you first told me that, I was like, "This is so weird." I have never like been approached like this, like to call you by your first name. I was like, "How am I gonna do it?" And so for the longest time, I like avoided it. So like I would just not refer to you by your name, and I would just like go right into my questions. I'd never be like Matangi, blah blah blah. I would just be like, "Can you?" Blah 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 blah. I would just refer to you in like the third person because I was like, "I'm not gonna do it." Like no, but after a while, like after the first couple times that you say it, and like there were you could attest to the fact there was like slip ups, I'd call you auntie like here and there. But like honestly, like it became like the norm. It was like, all right, whatever. She's just a friend. Like it definitely does shift it because like as when you call someone auntie, like you like it feels like you are talking to someone in terms of like the fact that they are, superior to you, right? And a lot of times when I'm talking to like auntie, I just like throw that term around because like that's the way that like my parents said like you call everyone auntie, right? And everyone uncle, like all that's it's like a term of endearment. But like I do agree with you that like to an extent there is a lot of fake respect because there's a lot of aunties I don't like being flat out like there's a lot of aunties that I just think are really not the best people. But I feel like with you, like when I started calling you Matangi, like you started feeling like more of like one of my friends rather than like an auntie or like someone like I can't relate to because I feel like they're on a certain plane and then I feel like friends are on a different plane. So I feel like you kind of went more to this friend plane and you became like way more relatable in my opinion, which is weird.
and I think that is what I'd much rather have than fake respect.
Yeah,
You know?
100%. I think it's super interesting that like that you think of it that way because like I feel like I was so like brainwashed and raised to be like you have to call everyone auntie and if you don't like that's disrespectful and like this that and the other and it's like it's still very much that way for 99% of everybody else but like it's pretty crazy like it's I never really thought about like the significance of the auntie and uncle narrative. That's yeah.
Yeah, and you know what, and you kind of hit the nail on the head with, there are people that you either don't like or don't respect,
Yeah.
and the fact of the matter is that age doesn't make you better. You know,
Hmm.
there are adults out there that I would not want my kids like talking to,
For sure.
and it's and then if I were to say, and you have to call them auntie or uncle, that's like saying, they deserve respect.
Yeah.
Every adult deserves respect.
See, I feel like that's a thing in like the Indian culture, right? Where it's like it doesn't matter. Like that's the way we were taught. Is just like it doesn't matter if they're old, like if they're a shitty person. It's like if they're older than you, you have to respect them because age is so respected in our culture that it's like ingrained within it, and it doesn't matter like how like they are as a person. Like that, even like my parents have said that it doesn't matter who they are as a person. They're older than you, so you have to respect them. And like I disagree with that to some extent, but
Yeah, I do too. I think respect has to be earned. I think young
mhm,
people have to earn respect, and I think older people have to earn respect from each other.
yeah,
And really, and from respect, I would hope that the next place that you go would be, like value, like that you actually value each other,
for sure.
and that you actually like each other.
Hmm.
And I think that's, and to me, that's really the relationship that I cherish. and especially like when kids are like like not kids, but like when young people or young adults are like in their 20s,
Yeah.
and they don't know when to stop calling people auntie, and then it becomes really awkward because
Yeah.
I think when you're in like, it's like me, I have friends who like one of my really, really close friends, she has kids who are almost my age.
Right.
And her kids are like maybe 5 years. Her kids are like maybe 5 years younger than me, right? So I'm definitely of her children's generation, but she's one of my closest friends, and she's in her 70s.
Definitely.
And she's so it's like and if I were to call her auntie, right? I think it would just kind of again make put like introduce this this other like a shield.
Yeah.
Right? And I think so it's like once you get past a certain age, you're no longer older or younger. You are, but really you're adults. More than anything, you're all adults.
For sure.
And I think as adults, everybody is the same. And I think when kids, especially like Indian kids, when they grow up with this mentality of everybody is an auntie and uncle, and I know that I went through this, and that's why I tell kids stop, is because I remember when I went to grad school,
right?
I remember I was invited to to this person's house for dinner, because being in grad school, this family was kind enough to invite me.
Yeah.
And and I was I was 19, I think. Yeah, I was 19. And I went to dinner, and I remember they had teenagers there, right? And and usually what happens at dinner parties is the adults stay downstairs, the teens go upstairs.
Yeah.
And these teenagers went upstairs, and my instinct was to jump up and join them, right? Because really I thought of myself as a child, even as a 19-year-old. Right? And I thought of them as auntie and uncle. But they didn't see me that way. All of a sudden, no, I'm in grad school. So
so you're like up with you're a professional now, right? Like you're an adult.
Yeah, and so so it was kind of the awkward place where like, okay, what do I call you now? And and then and it's like, and at what point do you stop calling somebody auntie and uncle? Because there have been instances where people in their late 20s, 30s will call somebody who's maybe 5 years older, auntie or uncle.
Yeah.
And then it becomes
that's crazy.
Awkward, right?
Yeah, that is really awkward.
Because you feel like because the thing is, no matter how old you are, no matter how, and I've seen this across the board, no matter how old you are, you don't feel that age. You always feel like you're younger.
Yeah.
Right? And so like I'm 54, but on the inside, I don't know. I'm like I don't feel 54.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's really old, And so like, but the thing is like, and so therefore you get to a particular phase in life, and if you haven't made that transition, you just start to look awkward.
For sure. Yeah.
And I think it's, so that's why, like, I'm kind of like, I'd like, I'll be like your like kind of like your practice, the way that you
love it. Yes.
Into adulthood. Like,
I remember when you told me that, my mom like had a heart attack inside. She was like, "Wait, what? Like, this is no way." And then like she came and talked to you, and you're like, "Yeah, I told him that." She was like, "Wait, what?
Yeah.
What?"
Let's practice now. Let's practice being adults, like actual adults.
Yeah.
Because you are now 18. And I do not want you to be 30 and then calling a 40-year-old, auntie. Because
I agree. It's really weird. But yeah, I mean I think that theory is so interesting, and I think there's definitely Indian moms that are watching this right now that are like looking at us and like, what is this trash? Like, this is just nonsense, So shout out to those Indian aunties that are watching this right now. I can't promise that I respect you guys, but we try.
Oh gosh.
we gotta call out our audience a little bit, So do you like, this is interesting, because you obviously grew up as like a South Asian woman, and you've seen kind of South Asian girls like in this country throughout the years. Like, do you think, because like South Asian culture traditionally has like women as like the homemakers, and they're very like submissive and don't talk out of line. How have you seen like girls who are South Asian in this country just like change throughout your time here in America?
Wow, I'm actually like I look at like women around me, even of my own generation, and
Mm-hmm.
and how they and how like perspectives and roles have changed and how brave they've become.
Right.
And and I find it very inspiring. I mean, I think like just today I was listening to um, a conversation that this young lady, she is let's see, my so I've known her because her dad and and Ramesh, like my husband, right? So they were classmates. They were college classmates.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got married, she was just a 1 year old. She was a little baby.
Right.
Brought her to our wedding. Well, the little baby now, she has her own little baby, and she was like I think close to like 30, right around there. I think maybe.
Right.
I'm not really sure, but
Mm-hmm.
but she is a dancer, and she's doing her PhD in performing arts, and she grew up here, but she is a Bharatanatyam dancer, and they
Mm-hmm.
were having this very interesting conversation about the role of dance, and it being like political, and so therefore there are certain messages that you have a responsibility to convey, like like for Black Lives Matter and kind of
Right.
getting that message out of racism, and it's really great that everybody is so I don't know, I feel like girls and women now are so they're courageous and they're strong and they
Mm-hmm.
are moving forward, and they try all of these new and wonderful things, and they're just kind of paving the way in so many different fields, and I think it's just fabulous. And I see that actually in like my students, right? Like my first class that I ever taught, that that they're all freshmen now in college,
Mm-hmm.
and when I talk to them, I'm just like, wow, like how are you this cool, right? And they're just they blow me away. They're just I mean, they're so smart, and they're and they just kind of go for it, like they try and do everything, and it's and very and and they're very unapologetic about choices that they make, and and they're outspoken, and I think that's just so cool, because I was not that brave when I was 18.
Right.
Very I was very, everybody was auntie and uncle, and I was very respectful, and
Mm-hmm.
and it was, I did what as I was told for the most part. Of course I did my I had my own rebellion happening in the
Yeah.
background, right? But as every teenager does.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I was I was very, like, my rebellion was very done very quietly. I was afraid
Mm-hmm.
to say, this is who I am. And I love that women and even boys, like, even all young people, it's yeah it just I'm just very bowled over and impressed and in awe of all of these kids.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
they're
like it's new brown America. Things are changing.
yeah,
So yeah.
and it's
I
awesome.
mean, yeah, it's super cool to see. I mean, I see it all the time, like even in my friends and just like different people. Is just like I feel like people are like sick and tired of this whole like cultural narrative of like like I guess Indian kids and like the good like Indian beta is supposed to be someone who's polite and listens to their parents all the time and does this and does that. And I feel like now more than ever we're starting to see people just say like screw it. I'm sick and tired of this system. Like let's go out there and just like do something. And like now, I mean, that's why you're starting to see so many South Asian creatives and people in entertainment and doing all of these great, like doing all this great work, which is awesome. And, hopefully I can be one of those people one day. So
You are one of those. You are. Like, I never would have done this at your age. Like, this is like so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I tried.
Tell people about this all the time. And this is like, wow. And you know how excited I was to be a guest. I was
Yeah.
I get to be a guest.
Yeah. A couple more questions and we'll end it. But I was thinking, so obviously your kids grew up in the Bay Area, particularly like Cupertino in the South Bay. And as you know, living here for the past 25 years or however long, it's a very Indian Asian dominated area, particularly where we live. So would you say like your kids' upbringing and the way that they interact with the culture is very different than like how you were raised? I mean, obviously it has to do with like household, and you raised your kids different than your parents raised you, but would you say like the environment has definitely played an impact on like the way that they have been raised and that they've grown up?
Well, I mean, I think, what's interesting is that I grew up more traditional and retained more of my parents' culture.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up as very much the minority, having only like, there was only like a handful of, Indian families
Right.
back then. And it's interesting that I retained more of that Indianness, than my kids did, who grew up with, being almost the majority.
I think you could say that they were the majority. I mean, I would not. I would be confident in saying that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And so, but being the majority, I don't, if I have to kind of dig deep, if I have to say, where is that Indianness in them? I don't know. I don't know if there's any. It's just, it's very much non-existent. So, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
You know what I think it is? Because I've done a lot of thinking about this particular thing. And it's just like, because I feel like absolutely, you're totally correct in that like kids who grow up in environments where it's very like, they are the minority, like you were saying, I feel like they retain a lot of their culture, because they're kind of engrossed within that environment and they don't really have like a lot to lose, if that makes any sense. But like, I feel like with us, like, everyone is just like, I mean, you have Indian kids all over the block now. And it's just like, everyone is like so shy to like show off their culture. And we're all just trying to like fit into this weird first generation subculture bubble where we're like, trying to be like woke and brown, but also like, really trying to like suppress that within ourselves. It's really weird to think about, because you'd figure that if you had like a majority of Indian kids, people would be like out and proud about their culture. But I think for a lot of people, that isn't necessarily the case. Even myself, like,
huh. Yeah. With my dad, it was kind of like, so can Anand say hi?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's a nude. Say hi.
Hi.
My middle one. This is my middle one for everybody that's in this podcast. Very proud of him. Very proud.
Yeah, we're talking all about you.
Yeah, it's a podcast.
Yeah. You're going to be famous. No, kidding. Yeah.
The one thing my dad would always say when I was, and this was whenever he would say it, it would feel like like fingernails on a chalkboard. Like, I hate when he would say this. And I would get so annoyed when he would say this. He would say, you have to be proud of your culture.
Yeah.
And in my head, I would be screaming, no, I don't.
I mean, I feel the same. Like, my mom says the same thing. She's like, you have to know your culture. Like, and like, I get it. Because it's like.
So it's, and so it's, and then he would tell me that you have to work twice as hard as everybody else because you're not white. And to me, that just sounded really negative.
I mean, I feel like he's not wrong. Like, these are the same messages we all get.
And it's like, I don't know, hey, Adam, did I ever say that? Like, you have to be proud of your culture?
I'm sure you said it at one point.
At one point, yeah, okay.
I mean, you wore like the Indian dresses every day, so like.
Well,
yeah.
Well, see, I guess that's the thing. So I didn't say it, but I guess it was what they picked on. That's interesting. So that's what you kind of get. That's what you got. The message you got because I wore salwar kameezes.
Yeah.
Interesting. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that is interesting. Look at that. You have a different perspective. We got 3 people on this podcast, guys.
I know.
Love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that is super like interesting that you have that certain perspective. I mean, I feel like we all have gotten those like 2 sentences, like be proud of your culture, be proud of who you are. But I feel like also every Indian American kid goes through their own journey of like accepting that part of themselves, you know what I mean? And it's like very unique for different people. Like I talked to some of my friends and they're like, yeah, dude, I've just been proud to be Indian, like no matter what, and I don't care, and I'm, you know, this is who I am, and like that's awesome for them. But like there are kids like me, like I definitely had times like my freshman year and my sophomore year, I was like, ew, like I'm Indian, this sucks, it's the worst culture ever, you know, like I have to do pujas and, you know, be vegetarian most of the time and all this stuff, and it sucks. And then like junior, senior year, like I started being like, this ain't so bad. Like, this isn't that bad, you know? And then like now it's like, it's come full circle almost, where it's like I have a great amount of appreciation for like my culture, and like obviously it's still a work in progress, it always is, but you know, I feel like I have gotten and come around in that regard. So that's been, you know, and I feel like growing up in the Bay Area has helped that to a certain extent, because I have access to all of these different resources, you know, like if I grew up in, you know, freaking Florida, like I don't know if I would have like, you know, India cash and carry 5 minutes from my house, or like, you know, a tons of Indian friends, or like, you know, all of these Indian activities that I could partake in, like Indian dance and Bhangra and all of these different things that like can help you find where you fit in. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's interesting.
You know what though, Anuj? I also feel like it works the other way, which is that you lose sight of, you know, the how wonderful it is to have to have friends who are not like you.
Absolutely, 100%. I totally agree with you.
One of the things that I did not want, you know, for my kids, or I hope that would not happen,
Yeah.
was that they would only have friends that look like them.
Right.
And one of the things that I really loved about McAuliffe is that it truly was a multicultural school.
Mm-hmm.
So when like I remember, you know, when Avinash was in first grade there were, you know, families from like 12 different countries.
That's
out
awesome.
of 17 kids.
Yeah.
12 different countries. Like it was amazing. And so and I love, and I crave, not love, I crave the company of people who a diverse group. I crave a diverse group.
I totally agree with you on that. Yeah. I'm always about like, let's bring together people who don't think like each other, and like, you know, like let's be friends. Cause like, I feel like that's to an extent is like not present within where we grew up. I mean, cause let's be real, like Monte Vista and Saratoga are like 60 to 80% Asian. Like you're growing up with people that look like you for the most part, that think like you know, like, and that like have the same like cultural values. And so like you do get stuck in those bubbles, which is annoying to a certain extent. And yeah, 100%. I mean, I think racial diversity is super important. And like, just because you have a majority Asian high school does not mean you're diverse in that regard.
Yeah. And I think staying home, I think one of the things that it afforded me was that opportunity to invite you know, friends from all over the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
into our homes. And so that the kids could have, you know, friendships that just was very rich and different, you know, with like this, you know, with all of these kids that
right
from, you know, from different places, and to appreciate, you know, that it doesn't matter where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, really truly, you know, what we value is not what, you know, not this, like really what we value is who are these people, who are they, like are they people
for
who
sure
are going to contribute to this world and make other people's lives better,
yeah
right? Because that's what's important.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
And luckily I think I was able to find you know, like I was able to find good people, I was able to find good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and I, you know, and so the you know, so there, you know, when I went and reached out and found, you know, like the families that I wanted to interact with, oftentimes they were the families that inspired me to become a better person. And you know, and it's I, you know, and I think, and it has nothing to do with what color you are, right?
I think that's yeah, and I think that last sentence is fantastic, and that's a great way to wrap this up. But before you go, I'd like to do this thing on every podcast now, ever since my guy Brian kind of introduced me to just like flipping the script and started interviewing me. So do you have any questions for me, or like anything you want to ask? Because floor's open. It's all you.
So let's see. So in high school, how did you manage to get out of the Indian bubble in terms of your friends? And what did your friend group look like? Did you have,
Oh man.
was it all brown?
Honestly,
Not.
okay, let me tell you. So in high school, I was friends with a lot of Indian people to begin. So like freshman year, sophomore year was like very much like the brown circle, like all of this stuff. But my junior year, I got into kind of a big falling out with them, and things just, as they do tend to be with these Indian friend groups. There's a lot of drama, and I'm not one for the drama. And some stuff was said and things happened, and I kind of just found myself on the outs a little bit. And I was forced to like make new friends halfway through high school, kind of. And it was like, okay, what do I want to do? And honestly, I just became kind of a floater. And I think that was honestly one of the best things that ever happened to me. And because I had friends from all over, right? Like it wasn't suddenly like I had that whole brown friend group, but I was, making friends with all sorts of different people. And I've always felt that way in high school. Like I never really had like one set group of friends. I had friends who were white. I had friends who were Asian. And like I was, Saratoga is one of the more diverse high schools in the area, even though it's really not. But it does have significant minorities and from different backgrounds and stuff, and that's cool. And I was able to make friends who were like all over the map a little bit, like my junior and my senior year, and I'm very blessed to have had that opportunity to do so. But yeah, I mean, I would say like for the most part, like half of high school was definitely dominated by that whole brown circle. And I feel like I was very like in that brown community. They called us Brown Town in high school because like that's what because it was all the brown kids would hang out together. And honestly, like I totally regret that. And that's probably, or like I'm not regret it, but like totally we're just like, ugh, like I wish I'd started earlier. And then like I went to college at like the whitest of the white schools of all time. So like that was a culture shock in its own variety. But it's like there was 8 Indian kids at our whole school, I think, and like the whole student body. It was ridiculous.
Did you feel special?
No, I mean it was weird, like I feel like to an extent I felt cool because everyone was like, like I was diverse, right? Like I was like, people were like, whoa, like, you're different. And like, they would ask me all sorts of questions about like Indian culture and Indian food and all these things. And I'm like, I'm not the cultural representative here. Like I don't have all the answers, I'm just trying to figure it out as much as you guys are, but it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, now like I can firmly say I have friends who are white. I have friends of all different races. And I mean, honestly, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, with the best birthday. Well, no, actually, my 54th birthday was the best, but during the pandemic was the best. But I remember when I turned 40, I threw myself a surprise birthday party. It was a surprise because I didn't know I was going to do that.
Yeah.
And my friend Shalini had called and said, "Hey, tomorrow's your 40th birthday. What are you going to do?" And I remember, Ramesh was in India, and so I had the 3 boys. And I was home by myself, and I was like, well, I'm doing nothing because I got the 3 boys, and they're all like little. They were all like still in like elementary school.
Yeah.
And so she said, well, why don't I just come over after they go to bed and I'll bring a cake. And I thought to myself, wait, she's going to bring a cake. That means I can invite more people because we're going to have cake, right?
Yeah.
So I just started randomly calling like every single person, every single friend that I enjoyed being with. And I just started calling and calling. And I said, hey, tomorrow's my 40th birthday. And it was like a weeknight too. And I said, tomorrow's my 40th birthday. And I said, I know it's short notice, but I just want to celebrate like after the kids go to bed.
Yeah.
Just come over with like a bag of like a snack to share. Like a
yeah.
Right? And I ended up getting like, 20 people or, 25 people saying, yes, I'll come.
Right.
And I remember I just spread out like this big blanket on the floor in the family room, turned on the fireplace, and everybody came. It wasn't a huge space. It was before the remodel. And I remember all my friends came in. They're all sitting like against the wall, just kind of leaning it back against the wall. I was just kind of sitting around. And there was a moment where I just kind of listened, and I just kind of stopped talking and I just listened. And from every side, of the room, the next person who spoke would have a different accent, So there was like the British accent, and the Korean accent, and there was the, Romanian accent, and there was the Australian accent, and there was, the New Zealand accent, and it was, the Indian accent, and like the American accent. And I just remember the Italian accent, and I was just thinking to myself, this is the coolest thing in the world.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I think that is the best way to wrap up the podcast. That story was great and fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it. If you guys like this episode, go like the wow, I can't talk. Go like the video on YouTube. Leave a comment if you guys liked it. If you guys want to see more of Matangi, make sure you let me know. DM me on Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is. My handles are all linked down below in the Spotify and YouTube editions of this. Thank you, Matangi, so much again for coming on the podcast. Much appreciated.
Again, everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation about South Asian generational change, parenting, and just random life stories with Matangi. This is honestly one of the conversations that I love because it gives people a sneak peek into what I am really like in quote-unquote real life and off camera. It was a super raw conversation. And the thing I appreciate about it the most is how I was able to have a conversation with an older Indian adult and someone who has gone through similar experiences that I have as well. And also the fact that I could be honest and transparent about issues that are happening. A lot of times I feel like South Asian kids feel judged and criticized by their elders and feel that they can't be their full selves around Indian adults as well as really connect with them. I hope this conversation maybe inspires a few of you to be a little bit more honest with your Indian aunties, air quotes, or elders, and talk to them about the perspectives and different perspectives of being an immigrant as well as generational change. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really do. So if you're on YouTube, go ahead and smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Make this community grow and subscribe. Let's grow on YouTube. We've been growing like crazy, so let's make this shit continue to happen. It's going super well. Also, feel free to follow me on Spotify. If you are listening on Spotify, you'll get notified when all the new episodes drop and all the content is coming up. Also, make sure that you follow me on the socials, Instagram and Twitter. I'm going to link all that down below, so go follow me for updates on the podcast as well as updates on our guests. That's something I've been doing just to see how they're doing and all the cool projects that are coming up. I know Kid Kuza and Sanjana just dropped some great projects, and I had to drop it on my story because it was straight heat, so you guys need to go check that out. Anyway, that's all I got. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode and conversation. Stay tuned for more content. I promise you it's coming. Just after calculus ends, these derivatives have been giving me too much of a hard time. But anyway, have a great rest of your week. I hope you guys do something productive. And that's all I got. Peace.